So you just found some old dusty 78s in your great-grandmother's attic, and you probably have some questions. Questions like, what is this record? When was it recorded? Who is this artist? Who played trumpet on this song? These types of questions are very common, and they're asked every day on forums all around the world. Today, I'm going to help you help yourself by providing you some essential resources that will help answer many of your questions about your 78. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Matthew from Jazz Crazy Records, and I would be remiss in my duties as a YouTuber if I did not encourage you at this point to like and subscribe to the channel. But I will not dally any further. Let us get right to the core of the matter. In the past, it was necessary to buy a whole stack of weighty tomes and pricey reference books that you would have to use to painstakingly look up your records manually. And if you're a jazz nerd and a bibliophile like me, you're going to buy these books anyway. Today, it's easier than ever to find information online. We're going to start out with some basic resources and work up to the nerdier and more authoritative stuff. And if you're a longtime collector of 78s, please let me know in the comments what resources I missed that you like to use. Before you go looking, you're going to need a few pieces of essential information about your record. Number one, the name of the record label. This is usually quite obvious as the design of labels usually prominently featured the name of the record label. Number two, the catalog number of the record. The catalog number is how the record is generally referred to in record catalogs and discographies. That's really all you need to know to start. For real puzzlers, you may also need to find the matrix number. You can sometimes find the matrix number right on the label, or it might be etched into the runout of the record. Matrix numbers were assigned to every recording a record company made, even the ones that were rejected or unissued. This is how you can track the same recording across multiple labels. You may, as you get more meticulous, even note the take number. Artists sometimes recorded multiple takes of the same song, and sometimes these different takes were released separately on different labels. The take number, if it is notated, is usually found in the runout of the record, in between the grooves and the label. Once you have all that information, you are ready to rock with researching your record. The first place most people go to search for information is Google. And the first page of results often is going to be from a site called Discogs. However, contrary to popular belief, Discogs is not a complete discography of every record ever made. It's just a database of releases owned by collectors who are members of the site. That's all. If a member of the site does not have a record in their collection, it won't be listed on the site at all until another member manually adds it from their collection. Members are discouraged from adding records that they do not physically have in their hands. So you may not find your record on there at all. Discogs also doesn't always provide a lot of background information or historical data on the artist or title. Since members are manually adding these records, some listings have exactly what's on the label and no more. When there is information, sometimes it's not always correct. Remember, amateur collectors are adding these manually, so mistakes can be made. So while Discogs is a great site, I use it all the time, and I've been slowly manually adding as many records as possible from my collection to fill the missing gaps in their database. But you're not going to find everything on there, and what you do find may be lacking in accuracy. So let's move on to some more useful sites. 78discography.com is a great site for beginners who are just learning all of the labels, label series, and artists of the 78 RPM era. It shows an alphabetical list of labels, and you can easily look up the record you have in hand. Note that this site also is not a comprehensive list of every 78 on the planet, but for certain labels and certain series, it's pretty complete. It mainly focuses on American 78s, so if you're looking for information on records from other countries, it won't be very helpful. However, for a majority of the 78s you find out there in the United States, this site is likely to have them listed. This is also a great way to learn what artists are on different labels and in different label series. For example, if you're interested in jazz, gospel, and blues, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with the Victor V38000 series, the Vocalion 1000 series, and the Columbia 14000D series. While you're at it, best to review the Paramount 12000 and 13000 series. Knowing these series numbers will also help you when you're out on a dig and you find a record you don't recognize. If the record is in one of these series, it's probably a desirable record you're going to want to get. This site often will also give you an idea about when a record was recorded. Sometimes it also lists a pseudonym and who the actual artist who recorded it was. This site is fast, simple, easy to use, and generally gives you some very good information, so you should bookmark it for future reference. Just using 78discography.com and Discogs, there's a lot you can learn about your records, but there are better and more authoritative resources out there if you want to dig deeper. The Discography of American Historical Recordings is a super cool project run from the University of California at Santa Barbara Library. They've been at it for a long time and have hundreds of thousands of releases listed on their site. An increasing number of them even have a sound clip of the record that can be streamed online. The Discography of American Historical Recordings, or DAHR, is not comprehensive, however. There are some labels and records you will not find on here. Most Edison, Victor, Columbia releases are here. I find it most useful to search by the record's catalog number. For example, if I'm searching for information on Victor 23039, I just search for 23039 and then find the Victor release in the list of discs. For some weird reason, their search can be finicky. If I search for Victor 23039, I come up with nothing. However, if I do a complex Google search using Victor 23039 and the site's name, I'll get right what I'm looking for. As you see with Victor 23039, in some cases they even list Victor sales figures for the record. Since this record was released in the middle of the Great Depression, it's not surprising that sales were low. It will also show you the matrix number of each side on the record, which you can click on individually. Matrix numbers are how you can track a recording across different labels. In this case, we see that Victor 23039 was also released on the Bluebird label, the Montgomery Ward label, and the Sunrise label. We also see that these subsequent releases were dubbed copies and not master pressings. This is super useful information. Not only that, we also see there was another take 1, that was unissued. This could mean that there's a test pressing out there somewhere that no one's ever heard. We also see personnel, though not always the full orchestra. And it is noted that this band was recorded in the Victor ledgers as Dave Nelson's Harlem Shots, which is not the group's name on the final record label. The listing will also tell you the time and place of the original recording and songwriter credits. We can also see they even noted the name of the session supervisor in the Victor ledgers. So this information is often coming directly from the record company's ledgers. As such, it is regarded as an authoritative source. DAHR doesn't have everything on it, and sometimes their search feature is not as helpful as it could be. But more is being added every day, and this is an active project with real people working behind the scenes to ensure the information is as correct as it can be. If you collect jazz, you'll definitely want a copy of Brian Rust's Jazz and Ragtime Records, 1897 and 1942. It's an incredible work, all done by one man in the pre-internet age.
We're not worthy!
That said, it does contain some errors and misattributions, but it is one of the most accessible discographies for most jazz collectors. The big reason it is so accessible is that you no longer have to invest $50 to $100 on hard copies of this 2-volume tome. This book is available free of charge for the benefit of the collecting and research communities in keeping with the author's wishes. I'll put a link down below where you can download a copy for yourself. An electronic copy of this book is amazing to have. You can simply do quick searches for artists, catalog numbers, or matrix numbers. A quick search of 23039 shows both sides are included, and we have an entry for Dave Nelson and his Kingsmen. Where this book is really helpful is in identifying the personnel playing on each record. You'll have to learn some abbreviations in order to identify the instruments, and those abbreviations are included at the end of the file, along with the abbreviations used for the record labels listed. Brian Rust also wrote an excellent discography for American dance bands, and this is also available online via Google Books and via archive.org. This is great for dance music that did not make it into the Jazz Records discography. Though between you and me, there is some stuff in the dance band discography that really belongs in the Jazz Records discography, and vice versa. Regardless, they're fantastic resources. It doesn't end there. Rust also wrote a discography for general entertainment releases that were not either jazz or dance bands that is also available online. This is where you might look up vocalists, radio personalities, and vaudeville performers. Between these 3 Rust discographies, you can cover a lot of ground when it comes to American pre-war records. If you collect blues and gospel records, you'll definitely want to get a copy of Blues and Gospel Records 1902 to 1943 by Robert Dixon and John Godrich. This book is an excellent resource. From Charlie Patton to Bessie Smith, it's got all of the blues records we all wish we had. There's also a digital copy of this one on archive.org as well. For pre-war country and hillbilly records, there's a great discography called Country Music Records by Tony Russell, which is also available on archive.org. Note that some of these books require you to create an account in order to check them out for an hour at a time. It's a small inconvenience, but totally worth it for what you get access to. If you collect records from around the world, it can be quite difficult to track down information on those releases. One of the biggest attempts to document ethnic music recorded in the United States comes from musicologist Dick Spotswood. He assembled 7 volumes that include discographies on Western European, Slavic, Eastern European, Spanish, Portuguese, Philippine, Basque, Middle Eastern, Far Eastern, Scandinavian, and American Indian. A lot of university libraries have copies of this in their reference section, and some of these are partially available through Google Books. But remember, they mostly cover American releases of ethnic music, not necessarily the labels and releases from other countries. If you have non-US releases on foreign labels, it can be quite tough to find information on those labels, especially if they're in another language. But there are some excellent resources. For example, Afrodisc.com is a great source of information on African 78s. This site was the life's work of Danish discographer Flemming Harrev, and has stuff that he manually copied from European reference libraries to create this resource. This site has historical information about the labels and a ton of label discographies. If you collect Indian 78s, you'll want to check out the work of Michael Kinnear, an amazing discographer who has published a lot of excellent information in books and on his website on Indian records. If you collect 78s, you're always on the lookout for discographies or catalogs. And Mainspring Press has a ton of great stuff. This is where you can find downloadable PDF versions of so many helpful discographies. I highly recommend you check this site out and download a lot of the PDFs on it, depending on what your interests are. You'll find discographies for well-known labels like the Victor Red Seal label, Emerson Records, Vocalion Records, plus a lot of cool obscure labels like Star Records, Olympic Records, National Music Lover Records, and American Record Company. I've also found weird catalogs by obscure labels just by Googling things and digging around. You do have to do some digging, but a lot of this stuff is out there. If you really love a particular artist, you may be pleasantly surprised to find that there's an entire discography devoted just to their work. I'm a big fan of Fletcher Henderson, and there's an entire book on Henderson's work called Hendersonia. It not only contains the complete Henderson discography, but also a breakdown of every song and a notation of every soloist. It also has great historical information about the band, where they played, and when they got notable write-ups. Clarence Williams also has one. Jelly Roll Morton, Benny Goodman, and Duke Ellington too. While these individual discographies may replicate some information that's available in jazz and ragtime records, they usually do a deeper dive and contain a lot more specific information and details. For example, in the Clarence Williams volume by Tom Lord, they not only list the personnel, but also the song key, the song form, and notated soloists as well. That's the kind of thing that music nerds like me love. Having said all that, we live in this amazing time where many of the foremost experts on the music and artists of the 78 RPM era are on Facebook, hanging out in 78 groups. You should always feel welcome to ask questions about releases in those groups. Generally, people are very helpful and appreciate when someone wants to know more about the music they love. But it's always good for you to know exactly how you can find out information on your records yourself. And that's why I made this video. So now that you know a little more about your record, you probably have one more question. How much is it worth? And that is a topic for another video on how to price 78s. I hope you got something out of this video, and if you're interested in learning more about collecting 78s or just listening to music of the 78 RPM era, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video so you won't miss out on future videos.